My name is Cameron Anderson, and this is my third presentation for Urban Philosophical Dilemmas. In this presentation, I will speak about the relationships between identity and the social contract. The idea of a social contract exists in everyone's lives, yet it is an extremely one-sided and intangible aspect. It is rather ironic, because a contract is something that multiple parties must agree upon, a meeting of the minds, so to say, yet it is anything but collective. Many people fall outside the social contract because of their untypical self-made identity or an unambiguous, predetermined one. Unfortunately, it typically tends to be those oppressed who happen to fall outside the social contract. Since the start of our society, blacks, for example, have been relentlessly oppressed and repeatedly had their true identity stripped, sometimes before they could even form. As Robert Birth notes in Existence, Identity, and Liberation, wherever he goes, the Negro remains a Negro. How could it be in any way fair to group a mass of human beings under one single identity? Doesn't this take away the whole purpose of one's growth in human existence? It seems that the majority of people get their identity by fitting a sort of label in society's eye, mostly based on appearance, and eventually succumbs to being this figure. Burt says that those outside the social contract have no true identity, just a perverted sense of one, conjured up by those bound within the contract. If what he says is deemed true, is it possible for those absent from the social contract to form their own identities that only they can recognize and others cannot? Is it ever possible for those with given false identities to rid themselves of this fallacy? Self-invention is the creation of one's true identity. A person can't self-invent in pure isolation. If they are alone, he or she has nothing to identify in relation to. In order to produce an identity, one must be amongst others to produce distinguishable features. For one to be a conscious being, one must have an identity identifiable by another conscious being. So technically speaking, seeing that those who are not bound by a social contract have no true identity, they must not be a conscious being, and in effect are alone, and because they are alone, they are ultimately prohibited the chance of self-invention. This just doesn't seem fair. So is it one's identity that allows a person to enter the social contract, or is it the social contract that determines one's identity? In general, the notion of social contract is unjust and oppresses and labels people often unfittingly. To what extent does it affect those outside of its reaches? Hopefully there will come a time where there is no social contract and everyone is allowed to create their own identity and express it without false prior judgment.